Let's see. Pathways. Well, so obviously, if you're at the center point of a magnetosphere, like on the cockpit or dashboard of any airplane, you can see, if you look in the cockpit, you can see the vacuum bubble, right? And like it's in liquid. And then they'll have a ball in there, right? And then you can see the cross. So pilots know why there's a cross there, which is known as the vertical and the horizontal stabilizers, which are your vectors, which are known as the event horizon vectors between north, south, east, and west, right? And those are known as arrows. Now, in the military parlance of nuclear weapons, what's known as a broken arrow is a nuclear detonating device that can create a mushroom cloud, right? Like mushrooms, which are fungus, which is acid, will vertically rise, right, as release of the amount of energy having reached critical mass expansion of its energy. So essentially what these folks do, which represent the destroyers of worlds, which are all your corporate military SSP folks, because they operate off of AI integration, means that they're weaponizing hydrogen to begin with, weaponizing water, okay? And so I was just watching because I was thinking, was there anything else? Because I can do one video for 5 minutes and never have to do another one, and the law has spoken, which is love is the law. And that's all that needs to be said, particularly if you experience what that is and why you experience what that is and the nature of what love is, because love is what love does. Number one, it does no harm. So if you're not doing any harm, then you realize that is the energy that goes on forever, because that's what you experience, being an energy, what love is. That's being what love is. It's not a word. It's what we feel in our heart and soul. It's an eternal vibration, which means that when you've chosen to serve forever, which means you've surrendered all of your energy in which to serve forever, you cannot fool living light energy. Which means if you're wanting to hold back, no, I really don't want to do this. I'm willing to give up 85% of my energy. I'm willing to give up 90% of my energy. In fact, I'm willing to give up every single electron that the photons kick out. But I want to hold on to one because I'm scared of letting go of all my power. Because if I do that, what will happen to me? There's one word I know in the English language that describes why they fear that. It's not just that they live in a lie, but it's called trust. Okay? And the reason that they don't trust, because now we're back to Neo and the AI, the Mr. Smith. Remember Adam Smith? Remember on the continent, 13 colonies? Adam Smith wrote a book, what's called Law of Nations, which is the rule book for AI, which are AI rule-based functions. Right, which are rules that the AI, because these are rule-based functions, which is programming language, which is based on algorithms, which is mathematical log scales, right, which is binary. So now you get into what I knew as a child, because I automatically sort of recognize that you're on a spiritual battlefield, because all you have to do when you're an antenna, right, a radio station, is you're picking up on all the frequencies and the vibration of the realm that you're in, and you know that it's fallen, because you're not experiencing love everywhere that you go. That's your first clue that it's fallen. When you know that love is the law, because that's what you are, or what I am. Okay, that's called a baseline. Okay, the baseline, line of communication, right? So that's one of the things that an eternal being can do, is cut off all their lines of communication between formations of consciousness that are using their network to communicate with each other, and now they get on the phone, nobody's home. Wow, where'd the hive go? See? So that's what a buzzsaw can do, is burn through all their layers of nets, just like when you throw a net out onto the reef. Hey, let's catch 50 fish, 50 units of energy, 50 units of consciousness, right? So when you sort of put all this together, and I was just watching this short video by the Hopi called Pathway of Destruction, and one that has a future, if you will. And so I knew, for example, as a child, that even though we think of this as like two, which would be like snake eyes, you have two eyeballs, holographic processors, right? But as a monopole, it's just one, which means I've chosen to serve forever because there's no difference between the male and the female, which is cold fusion, hot fission, which is two hot magnets that join to become one. That's hyperspeed. Okay. Which is faster than a warp drive, which is faster than the drive in this planet. Okay. That's cosmic level spirit. Now, the reason that the Hopi, as I was translating what he was meaning when he talked about how the Hopi nation, when he talked about how the word Indian actually came from the East India Company. And if you go back in history and you look at what was known as the East India Company and how the Dutch and the English were in cahoots with each other. And then, of course, you can stereo water type, right? The polarity, if you will, or the bloodline. You know, water worlds, why sound travels through water, pathway of least electrical density, why being in water feels so good, particularly if you've had back injuries or spinal injuries, right? But he mentioned the two pathways. Now, obviously, we have a right hand, right? The right eyeball, and then we have the left hand. So what this essentially means is the left-hand path, in this case, would be negative magnetic polarity, and then you have positive electrons. So you have positive electrons, and then you have negative electrons, and then, of course, that's defined as alternating current that's going back and forth, right? So you can measure the waves that are going back and forth, just like on your alternator on a car, right? It's running off a 12-volt battery, right? So you have a charger, then you have an alternator, right, and a coil and all the rest of that provides all the electrical power to generate mechanical power that drives an axle upon which you have the front and rear differential, which is known as a torque speed, to move forward, backwards, or turn. Operates much on the same principle of a cross, right? A magnetic compass. And so he was mentioning how about one pathway is spiritual, which means a spiritual pathway. And the other pathway is what we know as a material pathway. And the reason that it's a material pathway is because of, now we're back to vibration. And I mentioned before when I was a child why it was that my mother did not understand, okay, why it was that her boy was giving away, in her mind, highly expensive or highly valuable clothing that was purchased and personally tailored to fit me so that I could wear expensive clothes that represents the class to the children and the school upon which I have been registered with an Agent Smith program. Agent Smiths, right, okay. So here I am giving away all that stuff, but what it means is I'm actually releasing myself from getting rid of what's being held in memory as matter density programming, which are the matter codes, which represent the programming codes, which are the instruction sets that are running through a simulator, which is a clone version of a real spiritual realm that is not fallen. Which means to say, I'm trying to get home. As above, so below. So you realize we fell in density. Oh, this isn't my density. Whoa. And one of the ways in which you can actually measure that is how many times you take a crap. And you can actually measure it from the time that you've been exposed to anything you've been exposed to, whether you drink it, whether you inject it, whether you absorb it, whether you inhale it, or whether you swallow it down your gut.
Robert, there's pizza if you want some.
Hang on.